Welcome to Parev TV. We are very excited to share with you a Skype interview we had with Iris Haigas Chekenian. She is the author, she's the daughter of Aram Haigas, who in 1972 wrote The 4 Years in the Mountains of Kurdistan. And it was Iris who took 8 years to translate this book from the Armenian into English. The book was published in 2014 and was a major addition to the centennial of the Armenian genocide. We hope you find the interview exciting and buy the book. It is found all over, and it's just exciting to see how an Armenian survived and the resilience and how he was able to contribute to our literary world. Now we go to the interview with Iris Haigas
of Kurdistan. I'm sure our viewers will be very interested in hearing from you. What is the book all about?
Well, the book is a memoir of how Aram Haigas, my father, survived the genocide of 1915 when the Turkish military forces of the Ottoman Empire attacked and destroyed his hometown of Şabinkarahisar and all its inhabitants. Following that, he and his mother are put on a forced march, the deportation, which, as we all know, leads to certain death. While during that march, the mother is terrified that he's going to be shot. He's 15 years old, and he's taller than his age, and tall for his age. And she urges him to convert to Islam, saying, deny your faith, lie, deceive, let them call you an infidel, do anything to stay alive. And he does this and succeeds in converting and is adopted by a Turk who becomes his master. And the Turk tells him immediately, you must never again speak your language. You must never utter your own name. And I'm going to give you, this is your new name. And he names him an Islamic name. He calls him a Muslim, which is strange, but that's what he's called. And after that begins his new life in the remote mountains of Kurdistan with the nomadic Kurdish tribes, illiterate peasants, cut off from the rest of the world in a harsh, cruel place, and works as a servant and a shepherd.
Iris, the details we get in the book are just fascinating, and I think you agree with me that no other book covers life in the mountains of Kurdistan with the details your father has given us. How was he treated during the 4 years in the mountains of Kurdistan?
Yes, he was not maltreated. He was treated well, and he was liked. And I think it's because of his manner, his behavior. He was, after all, not sophisticated, but civilized in comparison to these almost primitive people living a harsh life in that place. And he came from a typical Armenian home. You can imagine what that was like. Disciplined, respect your elders. He came from a real town with paved streets and a church and a school and lovely orchards and holiday celebrations. So in comparison to the Kurds called him the city boy. And he spoke, everyone had to speak Turkish, of course, and he spoke impeccable grammatical Turkish.
You know, it took you, I understand, 8 years to translate the book, which was published in 2014. What are some of the more, what surprised you during this translation? What is outstanding?
Well, what surprised me the most, the number one, was how little I knew about my father's experiences, his life of when he was young, because we were, after all, a close family. And I suppose it's like the veterans of World War II that are so often written about when they say they came back from the war and they didn't tell their families anything about their experiences. The other thing I discovered was, having been new to reading Armenian and having, I didn't read before, I had to study to learn, it was the beauty of his writing, the poetic Armenian language. And he could write a perfect sentence. And I started to understand why he was so well known as a writer. When I started to read the critical reviews, they always referred to his bars style, bars meaning simple, and that was very much admired in his day.
And what was there in your background that enabled you to undertake this mission?
Well, I confess, there wasn't anything in my background. It didn't happen in a moment for me to undertake it. It was thrown at me. It was thrust upon me, because when my father died in 1986, he left a huge library, hundreds of books in English and Armenian, and I had to dispose of them. And there I can still see myself standing in front of those bookcases. I knew he had written 10 books, and I couldn't even read his titles. So I had no choice. I got an alphabet and started to study, and it began.
Here we are talking about a survivor of the genocide who was orphaned at the age of 15, living in the mountains of Kurdistan. And then tell me, where and how did he pick up his literary abilities, skills?
That is a surprise to me too, and it's a mystery, and it's almost unbelievable by time. And the first that I can say has to be talent, a gift and the talent. But second, he had a wonderful opportunity. When he escaped captivity, he was 19, and he reached Constantinople, Istanbul. And he studied there for 8 or 9 months at the Getragan school, and he had the good fortune of having a very well-known Armenian literary figure as his teacher, Hagop Oshagan. And he was very attentive. And Hagop Oshagan liked him and singled him out to read some of his compositions. He was in literature class. And he took to heart the advice that he gave all his students. And those were 2 basic principles which he never forgot. Number 1, when you write, don't use too many adjectives. Number 2, don't use too many big words, and so that's how he wrote. When we saw him writing at night at home, even though we didn't know what he was writing about, he wrote by hand, and it went very smoothly, one line after another, without hesitation, without stopping. Nothing like those manuscripts that you see where the writer has crossed out, changed, revised, crumbled up, nothing like that. He wrote straight through, maybe at the end make one or two corrections, and that was it. It was remarkable. It just, he could not wrap his head around. I did tell him a couple of times about other very famous writers like Proust and Capote and such, who spent a day and a half writing one paragraph. He couldn't wrap his mind around that. It was too, he couldn't absorb it. It was inconceivable. This book describes the genocide as in a way that no history book can. And as we know, every Armenian survivor has a story. We always say that. And I believe that it's important for anybody, but especially for Armenians, to read it, to know who we are, where we came from, what makes us be together. It's in our DNA. It makes us one. I can't help remembering Vartan Grigorian. Just only a few years ago, he was addressing giving a commencement address at Brandeis University. And he asked the graduates, "What have you done to deserve your ancestors?" Well, I don't think I can say anything better than that.
And I was impressed by the quality of the translation, because the likes of which we don't see a lot in the Armenian community, from one language to the other and bring it so beautifully. Not only did you translate, not only did you give us the flower, you gave us the smell of the flower along with the flower.
That's very, very kind of you to say. Thank you. I appreciate it.